Our first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for calling the CPS instead of helping my husband with his baby? My life is crap right now. Here goes. My 25 female, husband 28 male, had an affair, knocked up the girl, and now has a 1-year-old. The baby, Hallie, is approximately 1 year old. This was a huge shock to me, and I only found out when he brought the baby home because the child's mom died and the social workers contacted him. He told me that it was a mistake and he hadn't taken an active part in Hallie's life except for paying support. He wanted to shield me from the truth. He told me that he couldn't abandon Hallie given that she just lost her mom. We have always wanted to adopt a baby instead of trying to have a biological baby, and he tried to convince me that we could do that with Hallie. I told him to go to hell. I told him that I'm going to divorce him. But the problem is that we are in a bit of a spot, and neither of us can afford to move or file for divorce right now. So, I am now stuck with my to-be ex-husband and his affair baby in my home for the next few months. Yay me! He is convinced that I will forgive him and learn to love Hallie, despite me refusing to numerous times. He has now taken to leaving the baby alone at home in order to make me bond with Hallie. I went with it the first few times because Hallie would need to be fed/soothed/changed. However, it happened again recently and I called the cops instead of taking care of Hallie, and now CPS is looking into Hallie's situation. My to-be ex-husband is absolutely furious and yelled at me for refusing to act like a human being. I told him that it's his baby and his responsibility. The next time he leaves the baby alone without informing me, I would leave the house immediately and then call CPS. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take care of a baby? Now let's jump to the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your soon-to-be ex is trying to manipulate you, and you are refusing to allow it. Good for you. He is trying to force you into a situation you have clearly stated you do not want to be part of. If he really believed you would change your mind, he would be patient and let that happen, not try to force it. He needs to put his baby first, and not use her as a tool to try to control other people. He put himself into his current position, and now needs to deal with the consequences. You have ensured his child is safe when he leaves her alone with you, without informing you, if I read that correctly. He has put her in danger just by doing that. I hope he starts to prioritize the baby, and ensure he is giving her the love she needs, rather than using her as a tool for emotional manipulation of others. Best of luck to you. I'd bet a quarter. The soon-to-be ex isn't leaving the baby so a bond can be established, but leaving her because he needs a break, and is stressful trying to make time for his other side chicks. Baby number 2 isn't just going to make itself. I'm just glad Opie isn't one of the dopey ones who takes him back and pretends nothing happened. Not the a-hole. But your life is going to get even harder. Can you look for even a room to move into? Maybe by the end of October. Do me a favor. Pack a go bag. Right now, get all important papers and belongings out of the house and somewhere he cannot access. Consider a solid lock on your bedroom door. Be out of the house as much as possible. Hell, get a second job. He sounds controlling and manipulative and angry, and now you have messed with his grand plan. I agree with your actions, but to him, you are denying him his family and control over you. It's very hard to know how he will react, even if he's never been violent before. I work full-time, but it's work from home now. I have already left all important documents with a friend of mine. We bought the house together, which is why moving out is tricky right now. That's the end of the first story. The next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter that I absolutely do not support her only wanting to be a stay-at-home mom? I don't have a problem with the idea of parents who stay at home with their kids. It's not like that. I get that childcare is expensive and that oftentimes it just makes sense. What I have a problem with is my teenage daughter literally planning her life to only become a stay-at-home mom. As in, no college, no jobs, no certifications, nothing at all to support herself until the time might come. I told her that it doesn't have to be college, that not everyone needs college, but that she needs to do something to start making money to put away so that, if anything goes wrong with her plan, she has a way to support herself and the potential kids. Her feedback was that her backup plan was me and my husband. She would move in with us and go from there. We would help them survive. I told her then, what happens if we die, or we are incapacitated? She said, I don't know, Mom. This is ridiculous. None of it is going to happen. I told her bluntly that I don't want her becoming Nancy Botwin 2.0, that if something happens, she needs to have a backup plan and something behind her other than relying on other people. I emphasize that again, it does not need to be college. She can start working retail to learn customer service skills that she can carry on to doing call center work from home if need be. She can start working as a receptionist somewhere. She can do any number of things. But she says no, she's going to plan to be a stay-at-home mom. With that all in mind, I ask her, when she graduates high school, what is she going to do? She said, just try to find a husband. Maybe marry someone in military. I asked her again, in between that time, how is she going to pay her bills, her rent? She said she assumed she would be living at home. I told her no, and that she would be moving out. She could live at home if she gets a job or tries to get some kind of community college degree or certification. But that if she insists on being a deadbeat loser and waiting for a man to come and rescue her, she's on her own. This didn't go over well. I am now being held up as totally unreasonable, mean, a huge witch, etc. I don't think I'm wrong at all. I want to set her up for a lifetime of success and happiness. If this wonderful man who comes and whisks her away, knocks her up, etc., gets injured or dies, I don't want to have her come knocking at our door because she can't afford to take care of herself. Am I the a-hole? Now let's read the top comments of this post. Not the a-hole. Her expectations for life are unrealistic. You're doing your part as a parent and showing her that. Her entitlement is astounding. Correct. And aside from military, I can't imagine most 18-year-old men are going to be able to or willing to support her. Maybe sell her on the idea of college to get her MRS. Alternately to the MRS, she might be willing to get the certifications for working at a daycare. If she really only wants to be a stay-at-home mom, she could practice taking care of children, have an income, and a fallback if her life plan doesn't work out, all while doing what she loves. If that doesn't work out, maybe she'll realize she wants something else for herself, and if it does work out, she's got some money and experience. Not the a-hole. Not only that, she seems to fail to realize that even many men who would be willing to have their wife be a stay-at-home mom don't necessarily want someone without ambition or education. Many of the quality men that would be good husbands and happy with a stay-at-home mom wife want someone they can have an intelligent conversation with, someone who can accompany them to social occasions and make them look good in front of their peers, colleagues, and boss. Someone who will be an actual partner and participate in the family planning and decisions with actual, educated input. She is setting herself up to be either a trophy wife seen as a bimbo, hopefully she's good looking enough for that, or someone who will only attract as potential husbands abusive a-holes who will see her as a perfect target. Someone without skills or a specialized education who will be 100% dependent on them emotionally and financially without the ability to get away by her own design. Not the a-hole. In high school, I also wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and fortunately, that's not where my life took me. I'm 33, single, and childless. Sometimes our plans don't work out, and that's okay. She really needs to make a plan to be able to take care of herself regardless of becoming a stay-at-home mom. Agreed, I'm 33 and I just became a mom. If you had asked me when I was 18, I would have guessed I would have become a mother sooner. Being a stay-at-home mom is a blessing, but it's something you potentially plan for once the baby is on the way, in my opinion. I got my degree, worked multiple jobs throughout my 20s, opened a business, etc. It's unrealistic to just wait until stay-at-home mom status presents itself. Plus, I feel like she'd be hard-pressed to find a guy that supports her desire throughout the, I assume, years of dating/marriage that typically takes place before a baby enters the picture. And for the last story, would I be the a-hole for letting my sons change their surnames to mine from their fathers? I, 27 female, had 2 sons with my ex-husband. When I left him, he said he wanted as little involvement as possible. So, he requested no custody and has said if/when I remarry, he'll willingly allow my future husband to adopt the boys. We have, however, stayed in contact with his family because they were close with them, and we intend to maintain that connection permanently. Both my kids and myself have their father's surname, Williams. I kept his surname because my kids share it. However, I have recently had talks with my ex, plus Nan and Granddad Williams, which have led me to no longer want this surname, so I plan to change it to my maiden name, O'Reilly. I told my parents what my plans were, and they were ecstatic, and the next time I called them, Dad said, "Hello, my name, O'Reilly." My kids, who are 8 and 10, heard and asked why he called me that, and I hadn't had that talk with them yet, so I explained, but reassure them that this does not make us any less connected, and they were fine with it. That talk was about 2 months ago, and I plan to change it next week. About a week ago, the boys said that they want to change their names too and be O'Reillys, saying that they preferred it to Williams and they felt more connected with their Irish heritage than their English because I was able to teach them about their Irish heritage. I'm heavily paraphrasing here. I said they were a little young and they should really think this over because they're still in touch with the Williams family and should probably maintain that link. Nan and Granddad Williams picked them up from school earlier. At some point, the boys told them that they're thinking of changing their names and why. Nan and Granddad Williams feel that this is cruel and that I'm trying to pull the boys away from their side of the family. They called my ex, who has also said that I'm being unfair as he helped raise the boys until they were 3 and 5 and is paying child support, so he feels that a name change should never have been an option for them. The 3 of them want me to convince the boys to stay as Williams and said that I'm being unfair / harsh / downright mean to let them even think about it. And I need to make sure the boys keep their surname and that at 8 and 10, they're too young to make this choice. I've said that I'm giving them time to think about it, and if they want to change it, then I'll let them. I've checked and I'm legally allowed to do this. However, I feel really bad about it, and legal doesn't always mean morally correct, so I need an outside perspective. Now for the top comments. He requested no custody and has said if / when I remarry, he'll willingly allow my future husband to adopt the boys. He's willing to let them be adopted, and he doesn't want custody, but they can choose their mom's name over their father's name? Yeah, good luck with that, non-father. Not the a-hole OP. I'm guessing his parents are on his butt about it, and the only reason he cares is to get them off his back. So, a father who wanted no contact feels that because he sired kids and writes a child support check, the kids should have his brand? You're not the a-hole, but he definitely is. Make sure that child support is ordered by the courts before you do the deed poll for the kids. He'll try to withhold it if the courts aren't involved. Possibly, it's the grandparents who really care, not him, but if he says something to her, then they are off his back. Not the a-hole. If he wanted to be a father, he should have been a dad. Not the a-hole. I understand how your ex's parents must feel, given that they are close to your kids. I imagine they're already worried about losing the connection to your boys, and this probably feels like one tangible step to that happening, even though it isn't. That said, your ex has made clear that he's nothing but a sperm donor to these boys. He doesn't get naming credits for paying child support, something he is legally obligated to do. He's fine with your hypothetical new husband adopting the boys, but not with them changing their last name to match that of their only actual parent? Nope, he can't get right on out of here with that mess. I imagine they're already worried about losing the connection to your boys. I think you've hit the nail on the head. They realize that their son has no interest in these kids, and some guy in the future adopting them was just a hypothetical situation they probably thought they'd never have to deal with. But their mother actively changing her name and the kids following suit makes them feel like they are being pushed out. I think the only a-hole here is the guy who fathered kids and created this mess. The OP is right to change her name and allow her kids to follow suit if that's what works for them. The grandparents are allowed to feel like they are losing a connection, but they would become a-holes if they pressure OP or the kids to keep a name they don't want. And that's the end of the video, guys. Share us your thoughts down in the comment section. If you like this content, hit like and subscribe for more videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.
Am I the a-hole because I didn't invite my father to my wedding? Because years ago he told me I was no longer a part of his family? I, 28 female, will be getting married next month and did not invite my father to the wedding. But now he's trying to get in touch. I feel like I need to explain the background. It all started when I was 6 years old, when my parents divorced after my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmother. After that, I mostly stayed with my mom. But during holidays and vacations, I would stay with my dad. When I was 8, my half-brother Jake, now 20 male, was born. Whenever I was with my dad, I was forced to take care of him. When I started high school, I had to move in with my dad because my mom had to move abroad for work. This was one of the hardest periods of my life. My stepmother wasn't a bad person. She tried to include me in things, but she was very submissive to my father. As for my dad, he always treated me like an outsider, someone who didn't really belong. I was constantly responsible for taking care of Jake, And whenever I took my stepmother and Jake out, I was never invited. One of the most painful experiences happened when I was 14. My dad announced that the whole family was going to Disney for a vacation, but the day before the trip, he told me he wanted it to be a family moment, their first big trip with Jake, so I was left home alone. This was a pattern. Whether it was trips to the beach, the zoo, or other outings, they always went without me. My dad didn't like me going out with friends or inviting them over, saying teenagers together only cause trouble. He was controlling, calling the house phone at random times to check if I was home, and even had a trusted neighbor to keep an eye on me to make sure I didn't have visitors. By the time I turned 16, the feeling of being an outsider had only gotten worse. Everything I had experienced during vacations, the exclusion, the abandonment, became part of my daily life. Things came to a head when I turned 18. My dad got a promotion and decided to take a family trip to Europe. Since it was my last year of high school, I thought I'd finally be included. But then he told me he didn't have enough money for a trip for 4, so it would just be for Jake's 10th birthday, and I had to stay home. That's when I snapped. I told him he was being unfair and shouldn't have given me false hope. I explained how it felt over the years, and he called me ungrateful and spoiled, saying I lived with him rent-free, which was a lie since my mom sent money for my expenses and I did all the housework because both he and my stepmother worked late. The argument escalated and he kicked me out of the house, saying I was no longer a part of the family and not even his daughter. He literally threw me out and tossed my things onto the sidewalk. Thankfully, a friend lived nearby and I stayed at her place that night. The next day, I went back to see if my dad had calmed down, but I found my things still on the sidewalk, with some even in the trash. My stepmother had kindly saved a few items for me and handed them over. After that, my dad never reached out, except to call and yell at me a month later when my mom stopped sending him money for my expenses. A few months later, I got into an engineering program in another state, where I met my now fiancé, Mark, 29 male. He was a senior and we quickly connected, realizing we had a lot in common. We started dating, graduated, and now work in the same field, although at different companies. A few months ago, Mark proposed, and I happily said yes. I have social media but rarely use it. I've had Instagram for about 6 years and haven't even posted 10 pictures. I think a relative must have told my dad about the wedding because about a month after I accepted the proposal, he reached out through Instagram, saying he was excited to help with the wedding. I was surprised, both by the message and that he thought he'd be walking me down the aisle. I responded, telling him that my stepfather would be walking me down the aisle and that the wedding would be small, just for close family. After that, I blocked him. Inspired by stories I've read on Reddit, I expected calls, messages, and letters full of insults like ungrateful or spoiled. But instead, I received a letter delivered by Jake. Yes, we're still in contact. In the letter, my father expressed how sorry he was. I won't quote the exact words, but to summarize, he said that after kicking me out, he lived life as if normal with my stepmother and Jake. But when he saw pictures of my graduation with my mom and stepfather, he began to feel regret. He wanted to talk to me, but was too proud to reach out. Now he realizes that his pride got him nowhere, and he wants to fulfill one of the plans he made when I was born, to pay for my wedding and walk me down the aisle. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've moved on with my life, and his attempt at redemption after all these years feels a bit too convenient. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to include my dad in my wedding despite his apology? Edit. My stepfather is amazing. He always goes out of his way to include me in everything, and my stepsisters are wonderful too. When he found out that my father didn't take me to Disney, he planned a trip for the next holiday and took me, my mother, and my stepsisters. This is one of 1,000 reasons why I want him to walk me down the aisle. For those asking why my mom and stepfather left me with my dad, my mom works as a programmer and accepted a job abroad to save money for college and a future. My stepfather is a researcher and was doing postdoctoral work at the time. My stepsister was the first person to talk to me after I was kicked out. She visited me 2 days later and even stayed for a few days, though I was crying so much I barely remember. I didn't move in with her because she lives in another state, and I was close to finishing my classes and final exams. My bridesmaid and her parents let me stay with them, helped me gather my things, and set up a guest room for me. Now for the top comments. Notice how he only wants to walk you down the aisle to fuel his own ego and fulfill a dream he came up with when you were born. He's not doing this out of the kindness of his own heart or out of genuine love and affection. Based on the responses, I realized that my father's letter feels more like an attempt at control. If I don't invite him to the wedding, he can play the victim, and I'll be seen as the bitter daughter. He'll come across as the devoted father who always dreamed of walking me down the aisle, while I'll be the daughter who can't forgive. If he wants to pull this story, ask him publicly where all the family photos of you are in Disneyland, Europe, etc. No doubt there's pictures, and he can't BS his way that he never took family photos. Family members will put two and two together if they're not dumb. That's exactly what he wants. He wants his public image of being a good dad on show even though he's a monster. Your sperm donor kicked you out 10 years ago. You owe him nothing. Weddings aren't a time to resolve an issue. Tell Jake that his father isn't your problem. It's your wedding. Sperm donor doesn't get an invite. I hope you have a beautiful wedding and an amazing married life. I loved the terms DNA donor and sperm donor. I really think I'm going to start calling him that. Mark is even joking that my DNA is 90% from my mom, so he can't be called a DNA donor. But yes, I'm looking for the best way to respond to Jake so he starts referring to my dad as the sperm donor. My personality tells me to respond politely, but Mark thinks I should be short and blunt. And thank you. I will plan to make the day as special as possible. It'll be a day just for me and Mark. Next story. I told my daughters that I was moving on with the separation anyway. I found out that my husband cheated on me when I was pregnant, both times. I only found out 3 months ago, and until then, we were a very happy family. My husband is a great dad. Our daughters, aged 14 and 16, know the reason we are getting a divorce, and that he had 2 affairs with 2 women, but they don't know all the details. They are opposed to the idea of divorce and have threatened to never see me again if I go through with it, because the affairs happened so long ago. I understand that they don't want change and fear their lives being disrupted. I know all of that, but I just can't be with him anymore. I can't even look at him. Nothing is working. Therapy is not helping, and they are adamant about never seeing me again. I haven't seen them in 2 months. We currently rent a small studio apartment, and we alternate living at the house with the girls. One of us lives in the house, while the other stays in the studio. The girls refuse to stay with me at the house during my weeks, but they stay in the studio with my husband. The therapist advised not to change the arrangement, even though I thought I should stay in the studio permanently to give them more space in the house. We bought our house in 2003, and its value has quadrupled. Because of this, we'll be able to afford 2 decent homes, even if they won't be as big and beautiful as this one. It's not like the girls will be living in bad conditions. Before all of this, they were close to both of us and loved us equally. Now, they only love him. Last week, they made it clear that if I file for divorce, they will never see me again. I told them I'm never going back to him, and they said I've made my choice, and they will never see me again. Not the a-hole. Teenagers are stubborn and they think they can force your hand. If you give in to this, you would be setting an example that it's okay to submit to abusive or unfaithful relationships if someone applies pressure. Not something girls should be learning as the norm. Tell them that in their lives, if they ever need to walk out to protect themselves, you will support them, and it's a shame they don't feel the same, but it won't change your intention to do the right thing. I'm worried about what he's saying to them when OP isn't around. When they get older, they'll get wiser and return to mom. Truth always comes out. I 100% agree. I used to think my mom was the best and didn't like my dad. But when we went to get our passports, my dad showed us a message where my mom told him that we had said we felt like he didn't love us anymore. Honestly, that was an eye-opener for me. We were just waiting in line. It wasn't even like we were inside complaining or anything. Later on, I read the divorce settlement. My dad had given my mom about 1.5 million South African rand for properties and other things. He also had to pay for the damage to her car. She had an accident with it. I think she drove it into a tree, while still paying the 1.5 million. On top of that, he has to pay 30K in child support. While I understand it, my mom has barely used any of that money on us. Maybe 2,000 ZAR for spending money, and we're 4 kids, and that's it. We hardly get new clothes. My younger sisters get more than me and my older brother. My dad even pays for new beddings 12 times a year, but we only get new beddings maybe once a year or once every 2 years. My parents divorced and my mom also cheated. Multiple times, actually. I remember sitting at the door waiting for her to come back. I was about 10. From 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. with baths and dinner in between. It took me 7 years to really come to my senses. I wish I could get that time back with my dad. Your daughters will realize what they threw away when all you wanted to do was love them and be there for them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I won't raise her child after she abandoned him? I, 21 female, am in college, work part-time, and barely keeping my life together as it is. My sister, 27 female, who has always been more free-spirited than responsible, recently left her 4-year-old son with our parents and disappeared. She quit her job, packed a bag, and went on a soul-searching trip, leaving no real explanation beyond a vague text saying she needed to find herself. Now, our parents are getting older and taking care of a toddler full-time is wearing them down. They've been hinting that I should step up and help more. This has slowly turned into outright suggestions that I should take him in full-time, essentially becoming his guardian. I love my nephew, but I am not in a position to be anyone's mother right now. I have my studies, a tight budget, and no space for a child in my life. I told my parents and sister that while I can babysit here and there, I won't take full responsibility for him. I reminded them that's her child, not mine. When my sister called, I finally confronted her. I told her she needed to figure out her situation and come back for her son. She got angry, accused me of abandoning the family and said I should step up, since I'm the only one who has her life together. My parents are also upset with me. They think I'm being selfish and that I need to grow up and take on more responsibility for the sake of the family. I feel guilty, but at the same time, it's not like I chose to have a child. Am I the a-hole for standing my ground and refusing to become a full-time parent to my nephew? Should I just sacrifice my current life to help my family? Now for the comment. She got angry, accused me of abandoning family. Oh, that's rich. You're the one who's abandoning family? Huh, tell her to look in the mirror. Not the a-hole. I feel so bad for the children in these situations. Please tell her to get her tubes tied so that she doesn't have any more free spirit pregnancies. That's what I choked on too. Girl, I just needed to read the first paragraph. Absolutely not. Not the a-hole. Taking a responsibility your sister doesn't know how to handle will just push you back. Don't even think on doing that. Keep studying, keep working, and keep doing the best you can. I know the kid might struggle, but if you take care of him, it'll be just 2 people struggling and nobody's gonna be fine. Do the best for yourself. Ignore the rest. Sounds like she picked a winner for a baby daddy if she couldn't dump the kid on his family. Who are we kidding? Her parents are easier and they understand her need to be a free spirit and to find herself. His parents might have just told her to grow the heck up after all. I have a feeling that the sister may not even know who the father is honestly. Being a free spirit, she probably didn't have any exclusive relationships. I could be wrong, but that's the vibe I get from this. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister that her child isn't special and we don't have to plan every family gathering around him? I'm 27 and my sister is a few years older with a 2-year-old son. Ever since she had her child, everything in our family seems to revolve around him. I get that she's excited as a new mom and that her life has changed, but it's really starting to get on my nerves. Every single family gathering is planned solely around her child. If we're organizing a holiday, it has to fit his nap schedule. If we choose a location, it has to be kid-friendly. The food, it always has to include something safe for him, even if the rest of us would prefer something else. I can't even have normal conversations with my family anymore because they always end up turning into discussions about her kid, what he did, how he acted, how the doctor's appointment went, or what new word he learned. Every story my sister tells seems to conclude with the idea that her son is the most amazing, extraordinary child ever. I'm happy for her, but it feels like everyone else in the family has become background noise in her child-centered show. A few days ago, I suggested we all go out for dinner one evening at a restaurant so we could finally have some adult time. Just relax and talk, without constantly worrying about her son's needs. My sister immediately shut it down, saying it didn't fit with her son's schedule because his bedtime routine includes a bath, dinner, and then sleep. This wasn't the first time plans got rejected for that reason, but this time I decided to speak up. I told her that her child isn't the center of the universe, and that we don't need to plan every single family gathering around a schedule. I suggested that maybe she could come to just one event on her own and leave the child with her husband or a babysitter so we could enjoy some time without any limitations. She flipped out. She said I was heartless, that I don't understand how hard it is to be a mother, and that I'm an ungrateful sibling who doesn't appreciate her sacrifices. She claimed I treat her child like a burden when, for her, he's the most important person in her life. Since then, we haven't spoken, and now my parents are saying I went too far and that I should apologize because being a parent is a huge responsibility, and my sister has every right to expect support. On one hand, I understand that her child is her priority, but on the other hand, I feel like this has gone too far, and that as a family, we shouldn't constantly have to give up our plans and enjoyment just because her kid has a schedule. Am I really the a-hole for wanting to occasionally have a normal family gathering without always catering to the needs of a toddler? Am I the a-hole? What you should have done is say, "Oh, so sorry you can't make it. We will miss you." And everyone else carried on with the plans. I agree every single plan should not be dependent on a baby's schedule. Not every single time. Great idea. Thanks a lot. Info: which members of your family are advocating for child-free events other than you? As someone who regularly wants child-free time, this is the real issue. Go out with your friends if you want to avoid your nephew. He is part of your family now, and so will be at family gatherings.